All right, everybody. So, enter Mark Tullius. We had a conversation yesterday. He's the author of a suspense and science fiction book series, the Try Not to Die series. And he also is the author of Unlocking the Cage and his newest book, TBI or CTE, What the Hell is Wrong with Me, touches on exactly those topics, right? What's TBI? What's CTE? Brain injury, head injuries. He's come back from having brain injuries from fighting, and our conversation touched pretty much on his whole process. He had like a brain journal that he kept, and he said that after doing this journal, that even though he didn't really want to write this book because of the work that it was attached to it, he felt like he had to write it to give people that are also suffering from TBI or CT or both kind of a playbook and how he solved it for himself. It's something that's quite, I don't know how you would say it. I guess it's something that just sneaks up on you, especially for someone that's like, I don't know. I don't know. I was questioning myself, like, have I had bouts of this before? I played high school football. I know I had enough injuries in high school football, even though I wasn't like, a superstar or anything like that. You get hit and your brain gets jostled. Even body hits can cause CTE, and the ramifications of that are still not known, and they also are very prolonged. Like the timing before they come it could take 5 or 10 years for some of the symptoms to show up. So check out this conversation. It was very informative, and the protocols that he's gone through and the solutions that he had to deal with this problem are really interesting. So check it out. All right, man. So today we've got Mr. Mark Tullius online with us, author, fighter, and traumatic brain injury activist. I'm a big fan of Joe Rogan, and I never really knew about any of this stuff until I was listening to his episodes about CET, right? That's what it's called.
Yeah, CTE. I think in Germany it is. Let's see. In Germany, it is still CTE. Yeah.
So what is it? Chronic traumatic
encephalopathy.
Encephalopathy. What is CTE?
That is the neurodegenerative disease that occurs with repetitive head trauma, brain trauma. What's difficult is you don't know who it's going to develop in. Generally, it's not detectable until after death. I believe they may have just found the first person that's living where they were able to see it, but that's what they've been trying to determine. But really, it's like a form of dementia. It's going to affect. The similarities between traumatic brain injury symptoms and CT are very close together. So depression, anxiety, anger, like impulse control, that was a big one for me. Having that rage. So a lot of emotional stability, and because it just does a number on your brain. So, and then there's the memory problems and everything else. But it was the Joe Rogan episode that really got me, that started me on the path too, which was really cool. I had two friends send me an article because they knew I was interested in brain damage stuff. I was talking to friends. I didn't think I had any. I thought I had somehow, had a resilient brain. I didn't have any issues, and because I had 8 different concussions where I was knocked out completely. Played college football. I was a terrible fighter in both boxing and MMA. I had a losing record, so I was taking more damage than I was dealing. But I thought it was fine. And then 2 friends sent me the episode of Joe Rogan and Dr. Mark Gordon. And that's what really got me thinking. I wrote to them. I was like, I'll try it. I did his protocol. I had my blood tested, and they said, yeah, for sure, you have the symptoms of someone that's had multiple TBIs. My hormones were so terrible. And so that was the first step in, rehabbing my brain was thanks to Joe Rogan.
So traumatic brain injury is TBI. Okay. All right. All of these acronyms I have to kind of Google at the same time. Yeah. And what was the episode? What doctor was he talking to?
That was episode, I believe it's 1056. His name is Dr. Mark Gordon. There's a terrific documentary I just watched called quiet explosions healing inside the brain. And Joe Rogan's on there, Dr. Gordon's on there, Dr. Daniel Amen, who's another one I mentioned in my book. He's one of the leading brain doctors. So that's a fantastic documentary for anyone that wants to have an understanding of what traumatic brain injuries are and how they can manifest. And what's really interesting, I started this book because of, teammates of mine that were writing to me saying, hey, I'm having these brain issues. I'm in a brain study. I'm in a terrible place, into my rope. I started doing the research because of them and all these MMA fighters that I've interviewed. I interviewed close to like 330 MMA fighters, and I'm friends with a lot more. And, just thinking about what kind of damage that they've taken, what's going to happen to them. But writing the book made me realize just how many people have traumatic brain injuries that we don't know about. Dr. Gordon pointed out, like, it could be a roller coaster ride, or a small car accident or something like that can trigger this inflammation process. Once the inflammation process begins, our brain loses the ability to self-regulate hormones. And when that happens, like my testosterone was really low. My vitamin D3 was super low. All these different things were not where they should have, were not ideal. And so that was the first step, was clearing up the inflammation in the brain, getting the hormones regulated again. So at least that, that made a huge difference for me.
How did you do that? How did you, I mean, obviously, so like by getting this blood test, you were able to see your hormone levels. You're able to see like, okay, like my testosterone's in this cellar, and my vitamin D is not good. I mean, and it's funny because when you talk about vitamin D, like I talk to friends about it, and they're like, wait, it's a hormone? You're like, yeah, that's vitamin D is a hormone, man. Like that's
Yeah, I'm not sure when that change happened, because I don't, and maybe it's always been like that, but I never knew it was a hormone. I had no idea. And so everything that they had me take was over the counter, pregnenolone, vitamin D3, omegas, all these different things that you could just get over the counter. The only thing that I had to take that was prescription was Clomid, which was, it's a natural testosterone booster. So if you already are producing, if you're still producing testosterone, you could take this little pill that will boost it. So you don't have to take a shot. You're not taking, an injectable steroid or anything like that. It's just, a nice pill. So that alone has done wonders for me. That gave me energy. That just got me feeling better. And because a lot of people, and this includes me, I never really thought about my emotions being tied to my chemistry, and now it makes so much sense. But, if like that's what emotions are, for the most part, it's your chemistry. So if, I used to beat myself up for being depressed or not being able to control my rage or whatever else. I was like, my chemistry was just so out of whack, like, very little control over it at that point.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a very delicate. It seems like a really delicate system, right? And you get it. So I don't know where to start. I guess let's see. I was listening to a podcast on that was a pretty interesting one, on Unlocking the Psyche of Competition. Ben Greenfield.
Oh yeah.
It seemed like it was a while back though, huh? When did you guys have that conversation?
Yeah, that was probably that was before I even started looking into brain injuries. And that's when my whole approach back then was like, yeah, it's worth the risk. Is like, I understand why people fight. It is worth the risk. I wouldn't redo it and anything like that. But yeah, that interview was a long time ago. Wasn't until I was actually sparring at 10th Planet headquarters, where I just got done with training at Eddie Bravo, hour-and-a-half class. I just started there. I realized, okay, I love this. I want to do this. But I had already talked to the head coach about, training with his fighters, because at that point, I was looking for a fight. I was actually going to take a fight like at 42, 43 years old with nothing to gain by it. I wasn't going to make any money. I don't need the money, but I just was getting back into it. I went through the whole training session sparred with his guys. And afterwards, my friend, the same guy who had forwarded me the Joe Rogan episodes, told me, he's like, hey man, he's like, I'm not trying to be a dick, but you're getting your ass kicked by these guys that are half your age and have, 2 to 3 times your talent. He's like, you're tough, you're standing in there with them. He's like, but you got to think about, what it's doing to you. And so that's what really got me like, okay, I need to stop sparring. I need to, that's when I really started to look. And there's such a difference, I think, between knowing getting hit in the head isn't good for you and like really researching and be like, oh shit, this is not good for me, you know? So that was, and even after that, I still did have like 1 or 2 more sparring sessions. And after I had sworn to everyone I wouldn't. So it was a hard thing to let go. A big part of that though was identity. You know, I want to be a tough guy. That's why I like being a fighter. Like I was doing it for all the bad reasons back then, and I was doing it for the bad reasons again. You know, I'm sure there was some good aspects, but more than anything, it's an ego thing. It's always been an ego thing for me.
That's interesting. But I mean, jiu-jitsu is like, for me, it's so ego depleting.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine in 10th Planet, like those guys are just monsters, right?
Oh, I threw away my blue belt because I had a blue belt from when I was trying to fight. I got my blue belt.
You went back down to white belt. You're like,
Yeah. Yeah, because I was getting murdered by guys half my size, you know, and I was like, and I was out of shape and everything else. So that's the only reason I'm even proud that I'm a purple, because I was able to work back, you know, from white to blue, then blue to purple, and then injuries and stuff has made it to where I haven't been able to get back in. But keeping my fingers crossed that we will start up with a 10th Planet Whittier again. We're looking to start up one by my house. So yeah, I want to train again. My wife loves training. My kids like training. So yeah, it's a family thing.
I'm trying to get my wife into it too, man. Like she's into yoga, and I'm like, well, that's even better. Like yoga, if you can do yoga, look, these guys are doing rubber guard. That's what Eddie Bravo's whole crew is, all just rubber guard guys. And I think about trying to pull my leg up above, like being in bottom position. And see, look at now, he's saying my mic's too quiet. Yeah. Thanks, Anna. We got a guy chat to us right now and just saying that my mic's too quiet. Can you just turn my headphones down? Because I can't, it's like my own voice in there. But yeah, thanks, bro. A little bit higher, but yeah. What was I saying? Like just being in that bottom position and then pulling your leg up, right? Like all the way above the guy's, like behind his back, and then kind of wrapping, basically doing like a body lock around. Just like, no way in a million years am I ever going to get to that flexibility level, you know?
You know what? Even though I can't pull it off very well now, when I started, there was no way I was even going to come close to that. But I wanted to, and so I had to believe that I could, and so I just did a ton of stretching. I would go in the sauna, and I would only work on like butterfly stretches and loosening the hips and working on those. And so with the repetitions, with the practice, like I was able to get it. But I do think, you know, tell your wife, it's just like yoga. It's murder yoga. You know,
it's murder. Okay. And the thing about it is like you don't have these hits, right? You can go full bore, and you're not getting ripped in the head, right? That's
yeah. The only thing that sucks for me is I have neck issues from all the fighting and like my atlas. And so whenever I get back into jiu-jitsu, just from rolling, from playing too much on my back, I usually throw my neck back out. And so now the struggle is, okay, is it worth it for me to be out of alignment and have back problems, you know, in order to train? And sometimes I'm like, yeah, it is. And then I'll live with that pain for like a month. I'm like, maybe it's not. So it's all about trying to find, you know, especially at my age, I'm going to be 49. So I don't want to, it's a hard thing because, you know, you want to use up your body, but at the same time, you don't want to be crippled. So hard call.
Yeah, I mean, you know, these, like Joe Rogan has these crazy pictures of himself sometimes, like where he's got all these needles in his back and stuff, and it's like, oh, I'm 52 and I'm doing jiu-jitsu. It's like, yeah, but that doesn't look very fun. It's all bleeding. I mean, he probably doesn't even feel it, but he does all sorts of crazy things to keep his body on the level. Yeah. I mean, and neck is no joke. I had my rib, like I was in the bottom position, and my buddy pulled my lapel. Well, not like, you know, like the longer part, like the tail of it, and he pulled it up underneath my rib and just ripped my rib up. And I was like, oh, I'm sure, you know how ribs are. They're kind of weird. Like you thought, I was like, oh, I'm good. And then that night I was like getting up and getting down, and it was like kind of popping up and down. And I was like, oh, that's a weird feeling. And then I like kind of like gave it 2 weeks, and I went back to training again. And then I just really ruined it because and then I had like probably a 6-week period where I couldn't sleep. Like I'll never forget that. That was a crazy summer. And ever since then, I have like this huge respect for just listening to my body, and you know, these are all bodily things. To get back to you and to your book, the head is like, you're taking damage, and you have really no chance of catching it, because this, like, your one tool that's going to help you is the thing being damaged. Like, I could be aware of my rib, and even then I was telling myself I'm good. I mean, you
Mhm.
go there and you're used to this. You look physically fit, you feel good, you're good to go. Yeah, and you've
Yeah.
been studying these guys. So in your book and in these interviews that you're doing tell me about the process of writing the book and having these interviews with these MMA guys and talking to them about, I mean, it's got to be a sensitive subject, right? It's
Well, with the first book, Unlocking the Cage, the brain damage didn't really come up. I started that in like 2012. With that one, I was mainly interested in finding out who they were and why they fought.
right.
So those were usually good. I mean, we had some deep conversations. I had I was talking to guys of all levels. So amateurs, that were about to have their first fight or just had their first fight, all the way to Dominic Cruz, and other champions. And so, yeah, so it was super cool just seeing this wide range. I went to gyms in poor areas. I got to go to 100 gyms in the US, actually 99, and then one in Canada. Um, and so it was really cool. It was inspiring. I got to see a lot. But one thing I was looking at, the guys that had a lot of fights, I was kind of looking at them to see, how punchy are they? Are they slurring their words and stuff like that? And I saw some of that, but not a lot. And so that gave me another sense of, probably a false sense of security.
Mhm.
Because then when I started finding out about traumatic brain injuries, often lots of the stuff doesn't show up until like 5 to 10 years after the trauma. You might have had a car accident 5 years ago, never really thought about it. You walked away from it. Maybe you had a headache for a day or something, but it has started this inflammation process that you weren't aware of. And now your emotions are starting to change. And now maybe you're thinking it's something else. Maybe you think it's your marriage, or maybe you think it's just stress, or maybe you think it's like, but this inflammation is just building and your hormones are getting more screwed up. And then, yeah, with my with the new book, the brain damage book, I only did a couple interviews. One was of a teammate from at Brown who only played football, but he had also boxed when he was younger, and that was super sad because the reason I was talking to him was he was about to die. He had acute myeloid leukemia, and he wasn't able to fight it because of the CT was so advanced in his brain. Like the combination of the chemo and the brain damage was going to turn him into a vegetable. So even if he survived, it was going to be awful. And so I got to spend a lot of time with him and his family, which was amazing to see. But super. It was powerful for me to see that, and because he looks a lot like me, we were very similar. We both had lots of similar characteristics, and so I was looking at him. I'm like, man, is this the path I'm going down? Is this what's going to happen with me? Not the cancer, but even just the brain stuff. But so I was talking with him and Chael Sonnen's coach, Scott McQuarrie. He had some bad concussions later in life that really did a number on him. He had some long-lasting TBI symptoms. And so I got to talk with both of them. So that was majority. And then the rest of the time I was talking with doctors, and it's a lot of my process, but that process of thinking I'm fine, because I think that's important for people to realize. We all think we're fine because that's our normal. It's like, okay, no, I'm fine. It was 2 weeks after doing Dr. Gordon's protocol. I was in my backyard. This is like maybe 8 or 9 in the morning. Uh, Generally, that's when I would start smoking weed. I was a big cannabis user. I've realized how much of that was due to my concussions, just to give me a sense of calm. But I started crying, breaking down, crying in the backyard, and it's because not because something was wrong, but because I had this absence of, dis-ease. I was like, where's all this depression? Where's the anxiety? Where's all this other stuff that I didn't realize that was there? That was my normal. But all of a sudden, because everything is starting to clear up, like is not there. I'm like, holy shit, I can't believe I had been living like that. So
Wow.
that's one reason why I'm really grateful that I started a brain journal. So every day I was writing down, okay, this is how much caffeine I had. This is how much weed I smoked today. This is the fight I had with my wife. This is what happened on the drive to school. This is how I handled my stress. And so going back, like if I hadn't done that, it would have been really difficult for me to write this book because I wouldn't have really appreciated where I'm at now. But where I'm at now, I look back, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I was living like that. Like there's no way I would have made it through the pandemic. Like I would have been dead, divorced, or in prison if I hadn't made these changes. And that's coming from someone who most people think, that I have it together. If even if they knew the old me, they're like, oh, Mark's intelligent. He's, a nice guy. He's caring. He's all these other things, but they don't know what's, really going inside someone else. So that's what I was trying to capture with the title of the book. It's TBI or CT. What the hell is wrong with me? It's like, something's
Right.
off, but you don't know what it is.
That's powerful.
Mhm.
That's cool. So the brain journal. So that's a great idea. So you're able to and caffeine, anything that's going in, everything goes in the brain, right? But any of these stimulants. So you got the pot and you got the caffeine. Um,
Mhm.
do you microdose, or do you take any? Do you ever experiment with psilocybin?
I haven't. I wanted to, and that was going to be the final chapter in my book. Well, the second to last was just going to be on psychedelics, because I did do a DMT experience, and it was incredible. Like I tell everyone, like most beautiful experience ever, better than childbirth and all that. Like it was
Really?
just, yeah, life changing. My wife doesn't like hear me say that, but like it really gets rid of or lowers the fear of death. Just an amazing thing, make you feel connected with the universe. Yeah, absolutely awesome. I can't believe it's illegal. It shouldn't be. I don't think anything should be illegal. I think people should be able to do what they want, especially if they're an adult.
Yeah.
But so I was going to do the whole chapter on psychedelics, but then I realized I didn't want to do it for my symptoms because I feel really awesome. I just wanted to get high. I wanted to, try these different things. So part of me felt a little bad for not including it, but I give people directions like, okay, well, go check out this book or that book because I think there is something there. I think it is valuable. It's just because of the pandemic and different things, like I decided, you know what, that's not something I'm gonna do for myself. And that's another thing I really try to get people to see is like, okay, there's lots of treatments out here. Here's some that I tried. Here's what worked for me. And then here's some coping mechanisms that, because the treatments that I did do, everything in total costs a good amount of money. I realize a lot of people don't have that ability. I probably spent close to $20,000 on my brain. That includes the hormone stuff, with Dr. Gordon. That includes therapy for a year because cognitive therapy is important. You need to have, you need to figure out your emotions and how you relate to stress, like what your patterns are. Because even if you fix everything, you're still going to go back to those old patterns. Like,
Right.
so if I got defensive all the time, or if I got angry, or if something triggered me, so I had to work on that. And then the other cost was neurofeedback, which was the final key for me, and that was very expensive. But that's also where I was able to fix my sleep. I'd been chronically deprived of sleep for probably 20 years,
That's
and
right.
yeah, and not knowing it, I thought I slept fine, but what we were able to see that, like, I think it was my delta waves, they just were not getting where they needed to. So I was never getting the deep sleep. So I was never getting rid of the accumulated waste, and I wasn't releasing growth hormone and this important stuff. So that was the first key. We were able to see my scores. Like we also did an auditory and a visual testing called the IVA-2. My auditory levels were so low, like I was at the range of about, I think, 40% or 50% of men my age. So if you and I were having a conversation, even if I'm paying attention, there's a good chance I'm not going to remember anything you said.
Right.
Um, but then with the neurofeedback, by the end of it, like my scores were right on, and like so I was almost back to normal. So I spent a lot of money altogether, like 20,000. But I make a point of saying, I know not everyone can do that, but so here's other things that you can do that are super helpful, like fixing your sleep. Number one,
Right.
exercise is huge, something I don't do enough of. Diet is also huge. So those are three major things that anyone could do. And then I go into like the Wim Hof breathing, different types of breathing, cold therapy, meditation, all these things that are good for anyone, but especially someone that is dealing with brain issues, and just the importance of having coping mechanisms and talking with your family about it, and creating a plan. I think that is really important for people that are, pretty progressed in it. Early stages is not that big of a deal. Um, but those are the different things. But yeah, psychedelics would have been nice to include, but I left it out.
Yeah, I mean, but you'd have to do its due diligence, and that's cool that you kind of like, well, you just wanted to do it just for fun anyway, so it's not really that on that level of like, but that's interesting. Like all those things that you just talked about is like the last year of my life, like going through the same stuff. Like with the pandemic was Wim Hof, I remember there's like a 6 week period where I sat at home with the kids. I was one of these people that was like, okay, the world is going down and I'm going to save my little family. I was just like, I mean, I was just talking to a friend about that the other day. She's just like, you were off the record there, Remington. She kind of gave me this whole, because I was like kind of just laughing about it, and they're like, oh, now we can jump in on the bandwagon because he's laughing about himself. And I was like, I know, I was, I was one of these people that like, and I was just getting to the point where I was going to put hand gloves on and like wipe off the Amazon packages for a minute there.
Uh-huh.
And with the 3 kids and everyone, and my wife works we have a pharmacy. So she goes into the pharmacy. So she was like, I had to like basically spray her down every time she came home. Right. Cause she's just sitting at the source. Technically, I mean, we didn't do it, but like, there was like this weird dichotomy in my mind. Anyway, I remember finding Wim Hof somehow and using that to really just calm me down. I mean, just to bring it down. And then this feeling that you get when you really do hold on, and you really get that, like maybe after the second or third round, you finally get into that. Since you've done DMT, I want to ask, is there some type of, it's actually more probably the cold water, huh? Like when you get into that really cold water, it feels like it's like almost that similar feeling where the oxygen is just out of your body, and you just have this, I don't know. I just want to kind of share with you that, because a lot of people that I talk to, they don't know about it. And it's cool to have somebody else to talk to about that.
Yeah, I loved it. And every winter I start up the cold. I don't do it all the time like I should, but I always hate it when I start doing the cold water. I go in my pool and it's not that cold. It gets into the 50s, which is pretty cold. But there will come a point like in 2 weeks into it, I'm like, this isn't torture. Like this is relaxing. And all of a sudden, like it's just peaceful, and there's no more pain. And it's like hitting that state is awesome. And then the same thing, like with my breathing, lots of times, like last night I was doing breathing with my son to help him fall asleep. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to hold my breath, and like I'll hold it for like 2 minutes and then just slowly let it out, and just trying to show him, I'm like, yeah, man, it calms you. It makes you feel better. I was like, and this is going to make you a better athlete. I was like, I wish I had done this when I was a kid, because you're building your lungs, you're strengthening your lungs. It's going to help with jujitsu. But I love being conscious of breath and just how powerful it is. And it's something that we don't think about, we just don't think about it at all.
Yeah, it's so weird that like one of these, because it's just one of these things that happens and it works. And so you breathe through your mouth all the time. And sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night, and my mouth has got like that desert mouth, and I'm like, close your mouth and sleep with your nose, and then I just get the best sleep if I can just force myself to do that.
All right, here's what you got to do: start taping your mouth shut. Have you tried that yet? No, honestly, I laughed the first time I heard it. I laughed the first time I heard it, but my friend had just read the book Breath by I think David Nestor.
Yeah,
I bought the book, I read it, and then I started taping my lips shut at night, and it's awesome because you just sleep so much better. It stops the snoring, or almost stops the snoring. I snore really loud, and it keeps a lot of your water in. I think if you sleep with your mouth open, you lose like 40% more water or something.
okay.
That's why the dry mouth and everything. So it sounds weird, but I really do like that practice. Like I wait till my wife is asleep before I put it on. So you can just use whatever kind of cheap tape. I also have the Somnus Fix strips or whatever, which are a little bit more expensive. I think Mark Cuban designed them or something, but they have a little slit in them. But you just put it right over your lips, and it's it definitely improves my quality of sleep. So I think it's worth it.
I just picture myself coming into the bedroom with that already on and be like, hey, let's go.
Yeah. Or you could go with big duct tape. That'd be funny.
It's like straight up silver duct tape from ear to ear. Wow. That's it. That sounds extreme, but I mean, you still got the nose, right? As long as no one comes over there and plugs your nose, and you're good to go.
It's and that's another opportunity for you to deal with that fear, and because I think a lot of this stuff is really, I think most of our fears are really a fear of death, and so the fear of not being able to breathe, that's a fear of death. And so every time I put it on, I'm like, it is a little bit difficult to breathe through my nose because my nose is stuffed, but it's practice. You're getting in reps on calming your mind. Be like, no, I'm fine. I could get in enough air. I barely need any air. Every time I breathe in and out, it's going to be a little bit more, a little bit more. And before you know it, my nose is clear. I'm falling asleep. So I look for little opportunities like that where, okay, I know this is challenging me. I know I have a hard time with this. One thing I really don't like is mental weakness in myself. That's why I struggled with this brain book, because impulse control for me, that's a mental weakness. That's how I looked at it. Like, there was a stupid game I had on my phone. I didn't even like it, but I'd be playing it all the time. And I would tell myself, don't play this game. And this is before I had all this therapy and the treatment and everything. But then I would find myself playing it, and then I'd uninstall it. I'm like, I'm not installing that game again. Next thing you know, it's back on my phone, installed, I'm playing again. I had no impulse control. And my doctor just explained, he's like, you don't have that ability yet. It's not mental weakness. He's like, your brain doesn't have that ability. This is the level you're at right now. If your stress level goes above it, then you could want to be the best at it in the world, but if your ability's here and your stress level's here, guess what? You're probably going to lash out at your kids a little bit. And it's no excuse for the behavior, but it's a better way of understanding and be like, maybe it was a way for me to kind of forgive myself a little bit with, like, okay, the impulse control wasn't really mental weakness. It's not because I didn't want to, it's I didn't have that ability. And now that I do have that ability, I appreciate it. I no longer play that game.
That's cool. That's interesting. I just kind of brought me back to you going outside and having this moment where this cloud was almost lifted because of the therapy, that this protocol that you went through, and it hit you so hard that it brought you to tears. That's amazing. So
Yeah.
And is that the moment where you really felt like this is like, oh, what?
No, and that's what's nuts, is that was at the start, and shit got a lot worse from there. So
Okay.
it was, so my chemistry was getting better, and in the book, like I talk about, like, it had been a year. I think it was at the year point. My blood chemistry was really, really good. I definitely had huge improvements, but I still had a lot of issues going on. I was still, and a lot of it was probably because I wasn't exercising. I had my injury, so I wasn't exercising. There was a lot of different things going on, but so much of it was I needed the neurofeedback. It wasn't until the neurofeedback that I really got to where I needed to be, because that's where, when we did a brain scan, so I think it's a QEEG, which shows your brain. Like, ideally, the whole thing would be green. Red is over functioning. My wife did her brain. Hers was completely over functioning. She's a lawyer. She's always going. She can't turn her brain off at night. She's very fast paced. For me, and blue is under functioning. My whole frontal lobe was severely under functioning. So all this area, you could see all the areas that were severely under functioning. And I was like, that was all my emotional control, and also the area responsible for dark thoughts, which I've had my entire life.
I know that your books are kind of like, you could tell that in your Instagram. I was looking at that today. I was like, oh yeah, he's definitely got some great, some dark thoughts there.
Yeah. So that, writing has been a big, that's helped me a lot to deal with all that. So, so it took me a while to get to the point where I finally felt better. So I would say, it was a combination of all three things, plus the eating, plus the improved sleep, plus, it was all these things that really made the biggest difference. Like, the first thing was big. And that's one reason why I mentioned it, is because it felt so big, and then it was so little, compared to everything else. So I was like, that was just the first step. And, I still had so much healing to undergo. I think a lot of people would probably just stop there. A lot of people, and I was tempted just to stop there, right? Because I'm feeling better, but I wanted to finish the book. And that's when, like, even when I did the neurofeedback, when I went to get my brain scanned, I told myself I was fine. Like, I don't need this. And then I go in there and I see all this brain damage. And that was definitely depressing too. It was very difficult to go in. I remember coming back from that. I called my wife right afterwards, and I told her, I was like, oh, I used the wrong words. I said, my frontal lobe is gone, or fucked, or something like that, and that really scared her. And I realized that wasn't the right words, but that's how I was feeling. I was feeling like, man, like, this sucks. I did all this other stuff, but look at my brain. And at that point, I was really under the impression that our brain, I'd read books about our brain being plastic, that we could improve it, but I don't know how much I really believed it. And because everything that we've always heard since we were kids, like, you fuck up your brain, you screw up your brain, and there's just a downward slide. You're not going to improve. It's just going to get worse. But now I know that's not the case. I still have fears that CT will develop over time, and that might happen. But because my brain is now primed and I'm getting the sleep I need, I'm removing the waste products, the tau and the beta amyloid, which speeds up the CTE. And so I feel like I have a much better chance. I feel like, even if I do develop, I probably postponed it. And I also have my coping mechanisms now. So if I do have it, and watching my friend go the way that he dealt with death and approach death, and like he was amazing. And so I was like, no, what? I was like, if it does happen to me, like that's how I'm going to handle it. I'm not going to just go and blow up my brains or whatever else. Like I'm gonna, I'm gonna do it the right way. And so it gave me a lot more peace for sure.
That's interesting. There's so many topics there. Like the one that that hit me right off the bat was where you were just talking about the just this neurofeedback. So you go in there, they take this map of your brain, right? You see this picture, you see, but what happens after that? Like what how does that's a whole science for itself, right? So
yeah, so at that point, so we got to look at it, and the way the doctor explained it to me to make me feel a little bit better is like you have a very fast brain, you have a high functioning brain or whatever. He's like he compared it to like I had a Corvette or something that had been in an accident. Like it's still a really good car, but now we got to fix it up. He's like, if you had come in with a beat up like Pinto or something, he's like, there's not much we could do. We could still fix it, but it's going to still be a Pinto and it's going to be slow or whatever else.
yeah.
So he was telling me, you're lucky you're blessed with a pretty good brain. Now we have to improve it. So what we would, and then he said the first thing we needed to work on was a sleep. So that was the first area that they worked on. You would just simply go into their office. They would put one or two electrodes on the different spots that they wanted to work on. So let's say it was up here, or let's say it was right here. And then you would watch a screen. It's a video game playing. You don't do anything. You're just sitting there and watching it, but you would get an auditory and a visual reward every time your brain hit the right wavelength. So if they wanted my delta wavelength at like 30, these are just numbers I'm throwing out there.
Yeah.
If you wanted to hit it at 30, then every time my delta wave hits 30, then this dragon flies through this circle and it goes ding. And so it rewards your brain, even though like I have no control over the dragon, but your brain wants to keep getting this reward, and so it keeps trying to get to 30, and eventually it will. So with enough sessions, so it did wonders for me. Just recently we actually had my mom go in because she didn't want to, but her sister has advanced dementia really bad. My mom's sleep had been terrible for years and years and years. I told her, I was like, Mom, you're going to have dementia. This is what's going to happen. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, if you stay alive, you're going to end up in the same place. I said, at least let's give this a shot. She went, and for her, she only needed, I think we gave her 30 sessions, and her sleep is all improved now. All her testing is way up. I think for me, I did 100 sessions because I had a lot of damage. And lots of those were at home too. During the pandemic, I was able to do, I think it was through a Muse headband.
Yeah.
Through my doctor. Yeah, it worked.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, I played football in high school. I mean, it's just like there's always improvements, right? And you're just on it too, like just talking to you. I was just listening to the conversation from 2014. You're like, you're talking different. Like you got a hold, like that's 7 years ago, but like I can hear it in your voice, man. There's a different brain in there right now,
I think so, and that's cool to hear. I feel different. I feel much more confident. I feel like I could kind of retain information now before I could, and before, like honestly, I was high all the time. Like that's a chapter in the book because I had to address it because I was smoking all day long. When I went to like the Cleveland Clinic in Las Vegas to do part of the professional fighters study. Even going there for like 6 hours of tests and interviewing a doctor, I was popping cannabis gummies, so I was just like a functioning stoner, and but my brain needed that to get me to the level of calmness, and the neurofeedback, both the neurofeedback and the hormone regulation completely killed not completely killed it, but it lowered my usage by at least half. Like it made me anxious. If I tried using as much cannabis, I got really anxious. I didn't feel as good. And it's because my neuroreceptors were now open to this cannabis. Before I had so few open, like I would just have to flood myself with all this weed. But because of the hormone regulation and the neurofeedback, all of a sudden these receptors are open and they're grabbing it. So I don't need very much at all now. Like if I want to use it, I could do it late at night. I don't need it at all anymore. So I've broken that. So I'm still definitely pro cannabis, but I don't want it to be a crutch. I'm glad it's no longer something that I have to have, all the time just to function.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the side effects, the memory side effects, right? Like I remember just my heavy smoking days back in like probably like after high school to like the age of 25, like a good like 6, 7 years there where it was like wake and bake and then, going in the restaurant business and stuff. It's like that's just but it's just like when you're writing down the order for the table, and then by the time you get back, if you hadn't written it down correctly, you don't even know what the people want to eat. It's like, but that moment's like the weed's not the problem, right? But it makes sense. I mean, that's a whole nother level. That coping mechanism for you is like itself. That and that at that stage, it was it had to do with literally just the brain damage that you had incurred up to that point. And this clip that I watched the other day of Joe Rogan talking about. Oh no, I didn't watch. I just watched it a few minutes ago. He was talking about watching a football game, like a high school football game, and he's like brain damage, brain damage, brain damage. And I think I can definitely remember my first concussion in 8th grade was when I first and being tired in class, and our football coach was our history teacher, and history was always a topic for me to begin with. But I was always never someone that I never fell asleep in school, and that's when I fell asleep. And so I remember having this meeting with my mom and my teacher and Mr. Gomez. I even remember his name. It's crazy. And he was just like, yeah, I think Remington might have suffered a concussion. Did he have a game on Sunday? Or I think we played on Saturdays or something like that. And it was like Monday, the school day. And my mom we traced it back and was like, yeah, maybe he got hit pretty hard there, And so how old are you in 8th grade? I mean, what, like 13, 14?
Yeah.
That's a very tender little, I mean, our brain's always tender, but I wonder, there's a couple things you've brought up there that have made me want to even research myself and kind of just go into what's going on with my brain, get a scan, check it out,
I would highly that I wanted to ask you that. I was going to ask if you had any concussions, even just you saying that you played high school football, that alone, because it's not even just the concussions, it's the repetitive head trauma. So, and that's one thing they're really trying to get across with the traumatic brain injuries. You don't have to have a concussion in order to have a TBI. Like it's getting hit in the head. Like, and that was one of my problems playing football. I led with my head. Like I would always just go helmet to helmet every play. Like, because I played defensive line, I was shooting off. I was trying to put my helmet on their helmet. Like that's what I did. I wasn't a very good player, but that's what I was doing. So it was just that repetitive stuff. So I would say with you, yeah, I think the first step, like next time you get blood work done, you can send it my way or whatever, but look at, and this is one thing that Dr. Gordon makes a point of. Let's say your a testosterone range for people your age is, let's say it's just 30 to 100. I don't know what the real numbers are, but let's say low end is 30. If your blood work comes back at 32, lots of doctors would say, oh, that's low, but you're okay because you're in the range. Dr. Gordon would say, no, that's incorrect. Why would you want to be on the low end anyhow? Everybody is different. Let's get you to an optimal level. Let's get you at least to the middle, or higher, because that is where your body is going to perform better. So I think that is one of the big differences. And I think he looks at a lot more hormones than most people do. If you can watch that documentary, watch the Quiet Explosions, or go back and watch that Joe Rogan episode with Dr. Gordon. I think it's well worth it, because that definitely opened up my eyes. And yeah, that's what I want to get people to do. Like, even if, because we all know, it goes back to us being fine. Like, you seem 100% fine. You seem happy. You seem intelligent. You seem totally good. But who knows if you have some anxiety, or you're some depression, or these other issues, or if it's starting to accumulate now. So I think it is worth checking it out and really looking at that.
Yeah, like I'm kind of like I have to blame Joe. Basically, I have to blame Joe Rogan for all this, right? Because like I watch this episodes and then he goes down these rabbit holes, and it just opens up your mind. Like he has these doctors, he has these great people on there, and he's so inquisitive. He's had such a way of interviewing that you get so much out of that. This 3 hour. Sometimes I'll listen to, if you know, a 3 hour conversation. It takes 3 or 4 days for me to listen to if it's a really good one. And
Mhm.
there's even been moments like when he was talking to Dr. Rhonda Patrick where I'm like taking notes. Because my wife's a pharmacist, I try and like bounce it off her, and then she has to kind of look up the German thing. She understands. We speak English, you know. And she'll watch. Like I make her watch some episodes, like when it's with Dr. Rhonda Patrick, you know, about this whole vitamin D and vitamin C, and we ended up starting infusions here locally
Oh,
because
awesome.
we're out in the middle of nowhere. We're not really we're close to Berlin, about an hour and a half from Berlin. And the next bigger city, like 45 minutes away, you can go down there and get infusions. But my sister-in-law is she's like a homeopathic practitioner, I guess you would say. I basically call them, they're my white witches. Like between those two women, they just they would have gone on the cross back in the day. Like they're just constantly making things, and they're not really like, my wife's not the typical pharmaceutical. She likes to try and solve things like on a more of a root cause thing. So
That's awesome.
we do the vitamin C, like 7.5 grams, 7,500 milligrams vitamin C infusion. It's insane. Like you feel just like a newborn baby. But what we
That's
wanted to do was, like you said, like get your levels before and after to kind of see like what's going on. You know, vitamin C is something that in 24 hours, I think it's gone. But um, yeah, where's my testosterone at? Like, I
Mhm.
want to I want to be Joe Rogan at 52. He looks fantastic. And I know jujitsu is hard on my body. We've all had injuries, and I'm thinking like I want to do jujitsu. I'm hooked on it. It's like a life thing for me. So I want to do it until I die.
That's
And
awesome.
so yeah, but at the same time, it's like I know that the reality of that is in order to do that, I have to take care of my body like on another level. Like I can't just, you know, eat fry. I just used to eat terrible, like just frozen pizzas. I've been in Jerry's, no sports. I remember my first time on the mats, like I just got murdered, like murdered. Uh, and I felt like I got in a car wreck. My whole body was stiff, you know, because you just go into that, you're like kind of in this flight or flight mode. You don't even know it, you know, you just and and now like fast forward 3 years later, you know, we just doing a session. I'm just trying to get my blue belt though. I've been like, it's taking me this long, and I'm just like, I feel it coming. I hope, but I don't want to hold on to it too much, you know, but I'm hoping. And and just to look back and even those differences, and it's like, yeah, okay, omega 3s. Testosterone, good. It's a little tricky here because you can't just go down to the doctor like I guess you can in the States and just be like, hey,
Mhm.
I'd like to just, where are my levels at? Let's get me going. It's a little trickier here in Germany. So I ended up doing this asparic acid.
Okay.
I don't really know. Like it's kind of like my wife's like, okay, the studies are kind of here and there, but when I take it, like my levels they're up. Like I guess the normal level is between 300 and 900 for my age, and I'm around 600, you know, but that's also like on that day where I take the blood, like I was at jujitsu the day before, then my testosterone levels are going to be lower just because, you know, you just
Mm.
threw it all out there, you know. So it's just like having a doctor like on your levels would just be awesome, right? Because they just know who you are. They get your blood work on a regular basis. And I mean, how often are you doing blood work when you're trying to get your testosterone levels in the right area?
I think we did 1 month, so we did at the start, 3 months, 6 months, and then a year, and I think it's every 6 months, and
Yeah.
so that way, you know, the just to make sure everything's still looking good, and that's such a great indicator for overall health too. You know, a lot of people
Right.
don't look at that, but, like, you know, that could probably be a way to detect early cancer or something like that if your levels are all off. If everything had been going pretty good and then all of a sudden 6 months later it's garbage, then you know there's something that happened probably.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember talking to my dad about it. He's like, wait, we know when you're 40, you're gonna like it's gonna dip and you're gonna be depressed. Get ready for it. Like he just
Mhm.
gave me that speech, you know. I was like, I don't want that, you know.
Well, and that's Dr. Gordon's whole point. He said that Western medicine has accepted that when we hit our 40s, that we are going to decline. That is that's what we were taught to believe. And he said there's no reason for that. We can keep our hormones where we want them. So we don't have to have that slide. Why accept that? So I get some people may not be able to do it or whatever else, but I think that should be the goal. The goal should be to live as long a life as possible at the best levels. So.
Yeah, there's this stigma because Arnold or something that like just because we're talking about hormones and stuff, it's like first off I'm a dude, so my hormones are fine, my balls are fine, it's like just don't even talk about it. And then the second thing is, and you have to give Joe Rogan props for that because he's so open about it. And it's like he's showing like men that you can still be like you don't have to be a bro about that. You can just do this hormone replacement therapy and just keep your levels at like I was like, okay, I'm 40. Just give me like the levels at 32. I don't need to be 21. Just give me like a 32-year-old. I'll stay 32 on my hormone level until I kick the bucket. Like that's cool. Why is that unhealthy? Does that mean I have an enlarged prostate and I'm gonna have higher risk of prostate cancer? Question mark. So then I'm sure the doctor, what's his name again? I'm sorry, you said it like 5 times.
Gordon.
Dr. Gordon. That's easy to remember too. Dr. Gordon, what does he say about that? Do you remember what he mentioned about that? Because that's like one thing my wife always kind of throws in she's like, okay, enlarged prostate, better chance of prostate cancer because your testosterone levels are, but that's only if you're too high.
I'm not sure on that. Yeah, I'm thinking, I was like, if it happens, it'll happen down the road. But with the steroids, with hormones and stuff, when they first told me to do it and that they recommended that, I almost felt like I shouldn't in a way because it does feel like cheating, because even just testosterone, just that word alone takes us back to being a kid and, steroids are wrong, testosterone, all that. But my dad, he gets a steroid injection. He's 78, 79. And he's like, why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want your testosterone level to be where it should be, like, or higher? So, because you're going to have more energy, you're going to feel better. Why would you not do that? Because you're worried that it's cheating? And he's like, no. So, and he has prostate problems, but his doctors are still, doing the shot. So I don't know. I don't know enough about that to comment, but
yeah, it's like you're gonna, you're 75, you're 78, whatever, in your head, you're feeling good. And it's like at that age, like that's more important than right. That's what you gotta do. Like at that point, like the downside of that is not as big as the upside. But
right. And that's risk versus reward.
That brought me up to something else that you mentioned in this other podcast I was listening to in 2014 when you guys are talking about the UFC banning testosterone replacement therapy. Now I don't know what the status of that now is, because it seems like that's something that's almost like it's not cool. I don't know. I just wondered if you knew something about that.
You know what? I haven't. I've actually, you talking about Rogan watching the football and the brain damage. I've kind of turned away from MMA and like I don't watch football at all anymore. And part of it is just because I don't want to see these guys getting like severe damage. Like it's hard for me. It brings back a lot of stuff. Same thing kind of happens with fights. I still watch it if I have a friend fighting. But even then, that's still kind of difficult. And I realize it also brings up a lot of emotions in me too. Like I want to get in there, and it brings up a lot of stuff that I was like, okay, I'm suppressing that right now. Let's keep that down. Right. But I'm not sure as far as the replacement therapy. It seems like if they do have lower testosterone because of hits to the head, then it seems like they should be able to. But I'm guessing lots of those effects with their testosterone probably won't occur until after they're done fighting anyhow.
Right. It's such a delayed process, right? That's crazy.
Yeah. It takes a while for all those things to get jacked up, for the inflammation just to build and build and build, and and to really affect things. I believe, and that's what I struggle with too, because even though I've done this research, I'm really, and I say at the start of the book, like I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I'm a stoner. I've been hit on the head a lot, so yeah, that's my big disclaimer. Like Like, here's the books that I got my information from. Go check them out. You'll understand better. Yeah, so I always hesitate. I always like, I'm not a science guy. My brother's super smart. My brother's a biochemist at UCLA, and
Oh, wow.
I turn to him when I have important questions. But yeah, I didn't have his scientific reasoning. I'm more of the I definitely went down the artsy path.
Yeah, but that's cool that you shared your story, right? Because any person that hears this, or any person that can go to these different references that you pulled up, and I feel like I want to go back through this episode even and just kind of put that in the show notes, link out to all the things you're talking about, because there's so many things that, even when you talking about putting the tape on your mouth for sleeping, and the cold water and breathing, and then you know, and this whole protocol from Dr. Gordon. I never heard of that. Like, I think that was one of those episodes, like, I heard, I'm like, oh, that's really important, and then you just move on in your life and you move to the next thing. You don't even really realize how much you can improve it. Like I said, now I feel like I want to just check it out and just see, like, okay, am I blue brain, am I red brain, am I green, you know, where is it at? Is the frontal cortex doing what it's supposed to be doing? And then,
Yeah,
like you said, you feel good, and I feel like the sauna thing, like, I do that really helps, and I do the breathing in the sauna, so I feel
that's
like
right.
yeah, that's tricky. That's good stuff, huh?
Well, and I do that because oftentimes it feels like I don't like doing nothing, and that's one of the things I really talk about in the book, like with meditation. Like, a lot of people don't want to just sit there and do nothing, But I was like, I'll go in the sauna and I'll do my breathing and I'll meditate, and so I'm like knocking all three things out at once. I'm getting the benefit of all of them. It's just making it that much more powerful. Um, but yeah, that's how I justify it to myself, because otherwise I'm very bad. I always want to be productive. I always want to be, doing something. That's such a Western thing. It's like, okay, just do it. Be productive. Be productive. When going in the sauna, working on breathing, meditating, that is being productive. It's a different type of productivity, but you're priming your body, you're improving your body, you're going to go better into a flow state. Like, if I do that and then I go right into writing, I'm much more likely to be in a flow state where it's just going to come to me. So maybe I only need to spend 2 hours writing compared to 4 if I hadn't done the sauna. So maybe I saved an hour, so who knows what it is. But
That
yeah,
sounds
I
great.
think
For sure. Like, I've now scheduled my sauna time into my day. I have to be honest, it's not as easy as I thought it'd be, because I used to do it at the end of the day. I used to do it in the mornings. I used to get up like 4:30 in the morning. It's easier to do that in the wintertime in Germany. For some reason, it's just so cold in the winter, and it's like I can get up and it's always dark, so it doesn't really matter. But in the summertime, it's always light. So it was like really hard for me to go to bed at like 8:30 at night to get up at 4:30 in the morning. So that kind of threw me off of this amazing schedule that I had, like, during this last winter. Hour and a half of time, jump in the sauna. So I kind of felt like that was wrong. I just found out something about the sauna at the end of the night is better. I was listening to this from Huberman, that your body wants to cool down into sleep. So it's like, if you go into the sauna, it kicks on this cooling mechanism, and then you go down and you lay down in bed, and that's a really good way to end your day. So it's like,
awesome.
yeah, so it's like, okay, I do the sauna at the end, and then do the meditation, or like the moving in the morning, kind of do the sports, wake up in the morning thing. But scheduling that in, it seems counterproductive to spend an hour and a half every day on myself. And it's also selfish. My wife and I had this discussion. She's like, okay, I'm going to go to work. You're going to go in the sauna for an hour and a half. Have a good time, buddy, so that you're balanced. She gave me that whole thing, and I'm like, but I am more balanced and I am more productive, and she's like, yeah, you're more productive. Okay, have a good time, and it's just like, you have just even your partner that stress, and she understands me, but like, you do feel guilt. I almost feel guilty, like, for doing these types of things that are supposed to be good for me. Also, nobody else does them that I know. I thought I love this podcast because I talked to somebody else that has tried all these things out, but so there's like that social pressure to not even take care of myself, which is just like,
Mhm.
I want to, and I do it anyway, but it's just for people listening to this, they're like, yeah, great. First and then you have to, like, if you don't own a sauna, then you have to go to it's the accessibility of it's also tricky. But even these small little saunas, like these little infrared guys, they get you going.
Oh yeah, I had one of those ones you just sit in with your head sticking out and
Yeah.
your arms out. I had that for the longest time, and I used that for like 5 years every day. Sometimes I'd even play Xbox while I'm sitting in the sauna.
You got the arms sticking out of there.
Yeah. Now we have the infrared, which is nice. But I think that, and I completely relate to you and your wife, the discussions, because my
Yeah.
wife works from home. She's a lawyer, and I'm out in the backyard doing yoga or I'm doing whatever. And yeah, it feels
She's like, are you
really,
tired now,
so,
buddy?
yeah. So it's hard, but man, it is super important. And a lot of people will say, well, I don't even have time to work out. I don't have time to exercise. But one thing I've been doing lately is just hour-long walks with my friend. I was like, okay, we just got to do it before work or even, at lunchtime or whatever. Let's just go walk for an hour really fast. We're going to burn calories. We're going to get outside, get fresh air, and we're actually going to have a conversation with another person. So, I was like, that's the kind of stuff that we don't think. I don't think I need it. When I think about it the next day, I'm like, shit, do I really want to do that? I could be working. I could be working. I could be working. It's like, no, I think it's very important that we do take that time for ourselves, that we are selfish, like, man, that's probably the best time spent because, man, we're the ones that are stuck with our head. And if we're in a terrible place, if we're in a bad place because we aren't getting exercise or whatever else it is, we're not going to be as good of a father. We're not going to be as good of a husband. We're not going to be as good of a person. We're not going to like ourselves as much. And so I think it will continue to accumulate until you really see it. Like, it might take a while before the effects of not being selfish are really showing, but I do think that they are going to, they will show. So I think it is important, take time for yourself and do the things that make you feel better. Guitar is one of those things that I struggle with. I've always looked at it. I've been trying to teach myself guitar. That's one of the things for the brain, that in a foreign language. That's why I've been trying to learn German,
Oh
but
yeah.
I'm terrible at it.
We
My
can do
Deutsch.
the next podcast in German for you.
Yeah. Oh man. Like, the thought of that gives me so much anxiety. But I forced myself to do those things. I was like, no, I need to do these. It's not just messing around. Like, I could rationalize and be like, okay, I'm working on my brain right now, but I actually also enjoy it and it's putting me in a better mood, so like, let's continue to do those things that make us feel good.
Yeah, I was one of these guys are, that's just I feel like it's just my character. I don't really know the reason. Maybe it's because I also have something going on up there. But I would yell at my kids,
Mhm.
and you always feel bad afterwards, right? You always know you fly off the handle. You have that impulse. It ruins everybody in the moment,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter what you do afterwards. Like, you can try, and it's like an alcoholic. It's like, you beat. It's like I felt like it. I felt like I'm training my children to want to, like, my little girls to, like, they're just gonna want to marry an alcoholic asshole that's always apologizing for the mistakes he made. Like, I was like, I got to stop this.
Mhm.
Because I would, that stress level would be too high. And then the thing goes off, and everyone is getting now the loud daddy that's going to, and put them all, and I'm just going to shut them all up. And then it's like, and I feel instantly terrible afterwards. And I'm like, what is it? What is that? It's like, I get
Mhm.
it. I'm stressed, but it's like, nobody deserves this, nobody deserves this Remington here, this guy, like, nobody, like, uh, and I still do it. And I know this though. And the meditation is what really helped me. The breathing stopped, like, got me into the meditation because, like you said, it was the same thing for me. It's just too boring. And so the
Mhm.
breathing, and then the sauna is like a challenge because it's hot. So it's like, okay, now I'm challenging, I'm hot. And then you have these moments. It's so hard to explain to anybody. And I want to get into this one last thing before. I don't know how much time you have, buddy. I
Oh,
feel
dude,
like,
I got all day.
okay, cool. But the thing that happens in when I'm meditating and I get to that point where I'm literally not thinking about anything, and I really do have that space, and then you're holding the breath until it gets to the point where you feel like you're going to pass out, right? Like you have to be laying down. I've made the mistake of trying to do that in other positions and had to catch myself, like, from, yeah, I did that
Right.
once in the shower, and I ate shit in the shower. I just, I just do. And my wife's like, that's enough with this breathing shit. She like came in because she heard me just crash on the. I was like, I'm good. I was like, oh shit. Okay. I guess that's why he says in his app everywhere, you should be laying down when you're doing your breathing exercises, dummy. And I still
Yeah.
was like, I got this, I'm totally got this under control. But that just shows how much you really go away in that moment. And then you suck that air in, right? And then it just all comes back, and like your hearing comes back. It kind of it goes away, or it comes back. There's this whole moment, and when my eyes are closed, even when my eyes are open, like there's all these patterns. Almost it's a little psychedelic. I have to say, like I've never done any like hardcore levels of mushrooms. Like I kind of it's on my checklist, and DMT is too. But there's just such a religious moment of nothingness there that somehow translates into me being a chill dude. Like when I go, like ever since, whenever I stay on this, whenever I'm regulated about my meditation and I stay on it, and I do it every day. I do this breathing at least once a day, like 3 sessions or 3 rounds at least. I don't yell at my children. They come with me with their normal 3-year-old problems, 9-year-old and 5-year-old problems. And my wife with her, we all have, it's life. And I just take it for what it is. And it's so like, it's just normal. but for me, when I talk to you about it and I just kind of going through it right now, I realized that, there was no other. I'm just so lucky to have found it, is what I'm trying to say. And that's why I love to share it, because I think that if anybody can hear this that has the similar situation, and it's such an easy thing to do. I think it's even free on his app. I think you can do like guided breathing on his app without having to pay for anything. And it's you don't need it after a while. You just figure it out. But just having that 40 seconds of like basically hyperventilating and then holding your breath, and God, just a lifesaver, and like I said, just if that helps anybody, like it helped me, I just would love to share that, but
I'm really glad that you shared that because, yeah, the talking to the kids, looking at, and I've even gone so much as like, man, even if if I look at them the wrong way, like if I look at them really mean, like that's almost as bad as hitting them, it's like a big scary dad, coming down on 'em, making them feel like shit. I've had so many of those talks with my kids, like, hey, the way I talked with you, you did not deserve that. I was under a lot of stress. I didn't be able, but I think that's important. What you're saying, feeling like, the alcoholic dad that's always apologizing. I think if you're doing it right, I think that's amazing. I think it's great for our kids to see that we have problems, that we can have problems, controlling our emotions, because they're kids and they have problems controlling their emotions, and that's just like, that's the reality of it. I think most adults put on this fake show that they got all their shit together, and kids think that adults have it together. And so when they see an adult treat someone mean, or even them, then they probably deserved it or whatever else. But by going back and saying, hey, you know what, I love you. That is not the way you should have been treated. That's not the way anyone should be treated. You deserve better than that. It happened because of this. I'm really working on trying to, improve my ability to control my emotions, because, so I think those talks are super important. I've had those talks so many times. It's generally, sometimes it may not happen until like 5 hours later. The first thing after I go and smoke cannabis, generally the first thing I'll do is go back upstairs and tell my wife or tell my kids, say, hey, you know what I did earlier? That wasn't cool. That wasn't a cool thing to do. Like, that's when I get self-reflective, is when I go in the sauna and I breathe and, really just think about stuff. So not only is it helping me be more self-reflective, but like you said, just to be able to be chill and just to be calm. And and we just went like on a 3-week trip that was just so much stress. My wife was super stressed. There was a lot of stuff going on, but I felt like I could handle anything now. It's like, okay, like bring it on. Like, it's not going to affect me. It's just kind of like, I'll absorb it. I'll process it, and I'll be cool, and I'll be able to be here and be your support, instead of being that angry guy and that's going to lash out or going to get frustrated and, just not have control of my emotions. Like, I don't want to ever revert back to being that person.
yeah, that's what it is. It gives you this space to not get sucked into it.
Mhm.
And it's like, and sometimes and it's exactly what your partner, like my wife will have something stressy, and and it's like, okay, I hear what she's saying, but I like you actually hear what she's saying, like underneath, like what she's really saying. Like she's
Mhm.
saying this, and this, and you just like, and you can just kind of pick them up where they need to be picked up at, and just be like, we got this. Like you don't have to be afraid. And she's like, I didn't say I was afraid. It's like, it's okay. Like it's normal. You know, like if we're afraid here, it's like it's okay. We can label that, and we'll just put it where it's at. You know, and then
Mm,
there's like a whole feeling of like, oh, okay, like he's listening. It's not just like I'm listening to the words. I'm listening to like what she means. You know, and kids are the best about that too. Like they always throw that mirror in your face so fast because they're always on that level. They're kind of like you're full of shit. They call you out on your shit all the time, you know. So it's like they're great to have around for that.
yeah.
Um, I wanted to ask you because I want to get in. I want to try the whole DMT thing myself. I don't know how much you feel comfortable about talking about that. I mean, you can just
Oh,
say
yeah.
no. That's cool. I mean,
Sure. Well, I don't know a lot as far as I kind of stumbled upon it. It was I'd been wanting to do it for a long time. I'd heard Joe talking about it. So I wanted to, and then one day we were training like at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. There's four of us doing jujitsu. One of the guys says, "Hey, anyone want to do DMT?" I'm like,
mm,
"Fuck yeah, let's go to my house." And we just went out by the pool, put on the waterfall, and
yeah,
did it. But yeah, trying to obtain it and find out where to get it, like, that's the struggle.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, unless you have your wife make it, but just don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
She could
Exactly.
she could probably make it.
Yeah. She told me no. She's just like, I'm not gonna do that. I was like, thanks. You know, come on.
Worth a shot.
Yeah. I was like, I'm gonna have to go out to go get some toad somewhere and milk this toad, and but the cool thing was I got one of this Sonora toad book that was written from the original guy that figured it out, and then he actually wants to save the toads because they're just being harvested. It's almost kind of a sad thing that these
Oh,
toads
wow.
that have this milk with the DMT in it are just being harvested. So he created a kind of a manual for synthesizing DMT in the back of it. So I don't know, just go check it out. And that's a big block. That's a big blockage, you know. If
Mhm.
of course, like this in your situation, I guess what I would want to ask, like, so it's a 10-minute, 15-minute trip.
Yeah.
How would you explain it? How was it for you?
It was in pretty powerful. So I didn't know what to expect. So we decided to smoke it in a bong. He had it on leaves. So one of my buddies went first. He goes and he walks over to the waterfall. I go and I smoke it, and I didn't realize this, but the more you ingest, and I should have realized this, the more you ingest, the stronger it's going to be. So I hit the bong, and I'm getting ready to hit it again, and I just hear this wow, 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 this noise ramping up in my brain. And so I finish it, I hit the second one, and then I pick up my because dude, I thought I was gonna write about this. So I pick up my pen and paper and I start walking over to the waterfall and my phone, and the noise is getting louder and louder. And I look at my phone, I throw it. I just throw it into the bushes. I thought maybe that was part of the problem. And then I look at my page and all the words are like bleeding off of the page and onto the ground. And I'm seeing all these geometric patterns and stuff's like moving. It was a trip. I make it to the sit down. As soon as I sit down, like I realize I'm not sitting down. I have to lay down, close my eyes, and I just hear my friend saying, "Hey, just breathe." Because it kind of, for me, it was like I can't think of the guy's name right now. The famous artist, Alex Gray, like the band Tool, their
Yeah.
covers that are all real trippy and their videos. It was
Yeah.
kind of like that, and it was just this thing. It was I was in this black area with I could see some stuff. The sound was ramping up, and then finally, and they call it blasting off. Like I just went into this whole new world, and it was just like the most beautiful thing. All these geometric patterns, like red and yellow, and it just felt so incredible. And and beauty. That's probably not a word that I would normally just throw around either. But like I was just overwhelmed by it, and I think I kept saying that out loud, like, "Oh, it's just so beautiful," and just this incredible feeling. And so that was probably we were probably in there for like 10 or 15 minutes, um, thank God no one walked into my backyard. And then when I sat up and started feeling better, like you could still see there were still some effects, like a little bit of hallucinating or whatever with the trees and the water and patterns on the ground and stuff like that. But that all faded, and then it was just back to normal. I think they used to call it the businessman's trip because of that, because guys could go and do it at lunchtime, and then go back to the office.
And I think I would be like, I'm in a really good mood, so
Yeah,
bring the work on.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say for me, it definitely was a super positive experience, and yeah, I would say if you could, like, go for it.
Yeah, but I like that like that it has to happen like that. It has to happen like just naturally. And if it works out that like the way that it worked out with you, it's like cool. We can go. We have a place where we can be, and we got other guys around that are experienced, so they know kind of what happens. They can help you just to like just chill out here, sit down, and
Mhm.
breathe it in, right, and then you're good to go. Yeah. Yeah, that's why I want to do it, because every person I hear about, all besides Michael Pollan, when he talked about it, he's like, I'm good. I don't ever need to do that again. He said it was horrific because he got shot on this rocket into the center of the universe and everything was gone. And he's like, I don't need to do that ever again. Like, so that was funny. But I think there's these different chains of the molecule that are a little bit like if it's synthetic or if it's from the toad, and how you ingest it has to do with how intense this shoot off is, right?
Mhm.
But it's
Yeah.
you weren't even able to get that second hit off, right? So that was like what you were saying, like it just
Yeah, yeah, but it was and one of our friends that would did it, he didn't have as good of an experience because he didn't smoke as much of it, and so he
right,
never really blasted off. He was, like, just kinda in that one area or whatever in his brain,
yeah,
and so but he still had a good experience, but it wasn't like he wasn't profoundly affected like the 3 of us were.
yeah. Yeah, and I wonder, like, it seems like something that it's just kind of a nice reminder every now and then. I mean, I think there's a way of reaching that in some sense with meditation, but I think it's just takes 30 years of practice and silent retreats to get to that type of consciousness. And so it's a
Mhm.
little bit of like a shortcut to enlightenment, in a sense. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
let's kind of pull back the blinders and just show me what's really up here. And then it's gone again. And it's like, okay, well, maybe I don't need to do that every week, but I could, it's always nice to just have that reminder. It feels like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that. That just made me think of something that you're talking about how, it's a shortcut. I'm just messing around right now with a shortcut that seems to be working, hypnosis. I'm actually doing remote hypnosis sessions, once a week, and I don't know the actual stats on this, but supposedly it's way, way, way more effective than, talk therapy. Talk therapy, let's say it takes you, 20 or 50 sessions to deal with this issue. 1 or 2 sessions of hypnosis might nail it. But I really like how it's been working for me so far. I've only had 2 sessions, but lots of the messages I'm hearing them like one of the things she's implanted in me is I like making good decisions. And
That's a good.
and I yeah, and I hear myself saying it, and I really believe it. So it's not even like it's sometimes you could trick yourself into thinking certain ways or like, "Okay, I'm gonna take this perspective. I'm gonna tell myself this. When I want food, I'm gonna tell myself this."
Yeah,
But this is much more legitimate. Like I'll look at, going to get some popcorn because I have that, I wanna eat at night because I feel like a reward, but I'll go there, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go with the water. I like making good decisions, and then I feel good about it, and then I'll like repeat it, and it's just more and more. So, like that's one of the new ones we've been doing. Also working on squashing. I think it's good to be very conscious of our negative voices. I've
mm,
always called myself a dumb shit. I've always considered myself an idiot. And that's one of the things I would constantly do. So one of the things right now is, we're working on getting rid of that because I realize how much that's held me back, just that belief, that false belief.
right.
But even though it's false, and if I could look on paper and I could say, okay, well, this is not true. You're not an idiot. Um, but doesn't matter if it's false or not because I've been believing, I've been saying it so many times, so I have to break that pattern. And that's one of the things we're working on with hypnosis right now, and it seems to be working. So I'm digging it.
That's cool. So how did you find this person? You just also through a friend, or did you?
Yeah, a friend actually, I was interviewed on his podcast, and he recommended her. He said, "Hey, just try her out for free." I really hit it off with her. So, and now I got one of my buddies going to her,
Yeah.
uh, and that's what's amazing with these podcasts too. Like, it's an awesome way to create friends. Like I was always such an introvert before, always afraid to talk to people, thinking they're not going to like me, I won't like them, but making some awesome connections, having like this is a fantastic conversation. I'm
Totally.
not gonna have this conversation with anyone else today. Like this is super cool. So yeah, I appreciate this.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to my wife the other day too. We were walking the dog and walking the kids out there, and they kind of were all off on their own. And so we had like an actual moment for each other, And and I realized in that moment, because had something to change, and I kind of discussed, should I kind of just take it easy on the podcast and just stop it for a little bit? And I was like, no, I can't do that. Like I can't stop doing this. Like it just, and I was like, why is it so important to me? Like why is it what is it about this podcast that really is so important to me that I feel like, I'm almost like, you always try and let in meditation, you always try and let go of stuff and not have attachment. So I was trying to figure out, what is this attachment? And it's this human connection that you have with someone that has similar interest, or or even a complete different story, right? Like a perspective
Mhm.
that you never even knew was out there. Um, and then the secondary effect of sharing it, like just being live on Facebook or something, so like my family can watch it, and my family in the States that doesn't get to see me can see me. And I don't know, there's just so many secondary things to it, uh aside from just the fact that, like, I made a connection with a new person, and we can always have this. I can always come back to this. I can always hit you up afterwards and be like, "Hey man, so you talked about this and that. What was that again? I missed that part." And it enriches both of our lives, and then hopefully also the people that are listening to it, if they're interested in us talking for an hour and a half, about all this stuff. I mean, the topics are real.
Mhm.
The pain is real, and you went through it yourself, and you wrote a book about it. You made a brain journal, and that's something that needs to be shared to help other people. That just it truly is something good that you did, and it's worth sharing.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, and that's yeah, because I didn't want to write the book. I swore after unlocking the cage, I swore I'd never do nonfiction again. So I definitely did not want to do it. Took up a lot of time, but
Yeah,
I'm really glad I could, because I do think it's super important for especially men to be able to show vulnerability.
yeah,
That's important. Like, be real. I hate small talk. I don't want to sit with anyone and talk about the Dodgers or whatever else. Like, no, I was like, that's not important. Let's talk about life. Like, we have very little of it. Let's
yeah,
talk about it. So that's what I want. And going back to how powerful conversations are, that is what got me through unlocking the cage when I was going around the country to interview fighters, because that those trips sucked, man. I was going from one state to another and driving from gym to gym and barely eating and sleeping, and I was hurting, my ribs were busted, and didn't like it. But it was the conversations I was having with people. It wasn't because they were fighters. It's because it was another person sharing their story, sharing their hardships, what was important to them, their dreams, So being able to have someone else share that with me, and that just motivated me. That that filled me with whatever I was lacking. And that's what got me to go to the next one. I want to talk to this person. I want to talk to that person. Anyone that wants to talk to me, come talk to me. And so that's kind of how I'm feeling with the podcast now too. It's like, so this is, yeah, it's a cool feeling.
and you have your own podcast too, yeah? Or do you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm hoping you'll be on it. We have to just schedule a time. Vicious Whispers with Mark Tullius. I Lots of it I wasn't having guests on, and I realized I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy just talking real quick in my head. The real reason someone's going to listen to my podcast is for the short story or the chapter of a book at the end of my podcast. I don't really care about me. That's me putting myself down all the time.
Yeah.
But I also realized I like talking with people, and it's way better when I have someone on. So, like, I look forward to those when I have a guest on. I'll still share a story at the end, but yeah, no, it's the conversations. That's what people will turn into.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, it's like, I think it's also a good place to stop. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think I got everything out for the first round. I got everything off my chest. I'm
Yeah,
definitely gonna go back and check out this whole brain thing, man.
Yeah, I'll send you a copy of the book. 'Cause I was gonna say I'll send you all the links, but all the links are actually at the end of the book anyhow. So I'll send you the e-copy right now.
Oh,
The advanced copy is coming out soon. I could actually send you the German copy because we're releasing it in German on the same day.
really?
Yeah, yeah.
I
Let's
didn't
see.
know.
Was zum Teufel stimmt nicht mit mir? Uh, so that
Nice, man. So that's like a whole nother level of complication just to add to release a book in German.
Yeah, I'm going to the Frankfurt Book Fair for the first time. Dude, I'm so overwhelmed and, like, so much anxiety because I was like, I don't know whether or not it's actually for the longest time, I was like, "Is it even gonna happen?" Because of the pandemic and everything else. And then I was trying to get my dad to go with me, and then he's not gonna go, so I was like, "Damn." I was like, "I'm gonna go to Germany by myself to exhibit at a fair I've never ever been at." But
Right.
yeah, that's coming up October 20th. But
Yeah.
I'm releasing the German book, and so I'm going to look for a publicist in Germany. I want to start getting in the newspapers. I want to really make a big deal about the TBI book, and I have two other books that are translated in German now. But I really want. I'm going to translate all my titles because I really want to. I want to go after that market. I have family in Germany, not that I know very well. Um, but I was like, there's definitely a connection there, and I'm trying to learn the language, so why not do it?
Oh man, that's cool. I wonder if I can the 20th to 24th. I have to look at that. I just pulled it up online here. The Frankfurter Buchmesse 2021. Reconnect. Welcome to Frankfurt.
Yeah, if you can make it, man, I'll get you a pass for sure.
Yeah, I definitely check that out, man. That's interesting. That's a funny thing that I'm like I'm American living in Germany, and then it's just an interesting coincidence again. I love that's again like I love that about this podcast. It's like how random is that like that you're into that you're trying
Well,
to
that's why I want you on my podcast because I want to talk to you about your podcast and just your experience going over there because I'm really interested in it. I think that's a possibility. Like, I probably wouldn't do it until my kids graduated or whatever, but
right
I do want to see how much you like it and everything else. So I think that'll be a pretty cool conversation.
for
Um,
sure.
And and I just hooked up with I just got a co-author. We just signed a contract. He's a German. He lives in Germany. We're gonna do Try Not to Die, which is my so I have a series of books called Try Not to Die, which is kind of like the old Choose Your Own Adventures, where every couple pages you choose what happens. But in my book, if you choose wrong, you die. Like terrible. Uh, so I'm gonna write it with him, but we're gonna do Try Not to Die on the Rhine. So on the Rhine River, we're using a lot of Germany's legendary creatures. So he's going to write it in German. I'll translate it on my end, and then I'll write the English version, and we'll go back and forth. So yeah, I want to try to hit an author. I also got one in Canada now. So I'm going to try to hit every country with it, just world domination. But yeah, so I got that one in Germany. I'm pretty excited about that.
Right on, man. Yeah, you're definitely a productive guy. As for as much meditation and relaxation you're doing, I guess it's working out, huh?
Yeah, it and that's what I'm realizing now too, is like I've already done so much. I've done so much of the work now, like I used to always just rush things and I wouldn't appreciate it. But now it's like with the brain book, this is the first book where I'm like, okay, this is an important book. I need to make sure to do this one right. I think it's important, to get it out there. Keeping my fingers crossed that I'll get on Rogan's podcast. We'll
Yeah.
see. I just got an amazing blurb from Sam Sheridan, who wrote, he was on Joe Rogan's podcast. He wrote The Fighter's Mind and I think The Warrior's Heart or The Fighter's Heart, something like that. But he just gave me an awesome blurb for the book. So
Sweet.
I'm spending time on that, and I have all these different co-authors. I think we have like 20 books altogether in the Try Not to Die series that we're, slowly working on. But yeah, I believe in just working on as many things as possible, and then I do the sauna and the breathing to not be overwhelmed by it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Man, that was nice. That was a good conversation, man. So yeah, then I will definitely hit you up. I'll when we're gonna finish up this episode, and then I when I release it, I'll just send you a note, and then I would love to just yeah, like I said, stay connected, and I'll definitely check out these dates with my wife. I think that we have to check and make sure that my son they have like he has like a week off in October from school. I have to see where that aligns with that. But other than that, like a trip down to Frankfurt to meet you in person would be pretty badass.
That'd be super cool. We could train too. We'll have to find a place to train.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, exactly. Oh, totally. Like, just find, like, a jujitsu place down there, and then,
Mhm.
just do a little session and roll, and that would exactly.
Yeah, that'd be super cool.
Yeah. can always go for a little. It's always cool to go into like, that's what I love about jujitsu. It's just that like you can just show up and be like, hey, let's roll. You can maybe hit them up a day beforehand. And they're like, yeah, open mats, just come by. Like, what other sports can you do that like that?
Yeah.
You show up and
No, I
train
love
a totally new group of guys. That's cool.
it.
Yeah, dude. All right. Well then, Mark, thanks again.
Thank you. This was amazing, man. You made my day. Super cool. I appreciate it. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you more on my podcast.
Right on. All right, Mark. Adios, amigo.
All right. See ya.